So a few weeks ago I experimented with watercolour pencils and sandpaper. I really loved the effect, but I was slightly disappointed when the colours reactivated and reblended again as I worked over them. A beginner's oversight, perhaps, maybe. But it occurred to me that Inktense doesn't reblend once it's dry. So today I'm revisiting the same idea, but swapping the watercolour pencils for Inktense pencils just to see how differently it behaves. And today I'm using P120 sandpaper, which is a finer grade than in my previous experiment, but I did choose a finer grade with the hope that it would produce a more delicate dust. So I started by scraping the pencils across the sandpaper and just allowing the pigment to fall on the page. Now, because the Inktense pencils are much softer than standard watercolour pencils, achieving the fine dust took a little bit more effort. And it does run down your pencils fairly quickly. As you're rubbing across the sandpaper, it can become a little bit smooth and slightly glossy with the pigment, and it then helps to move over to a fresh section. The dust, when it falls on the paper, it appears quite faint at first, almost underwhelming. But because Inktense does have a reputation for intensity once it's activated, you really can't see the true strength of the colour until you add water, which was the next step. So I misted the page lightly to start with. And then, admittedly, I got a little bit trigger happy with the water and I saturated it a bit too much. So it was a bit of a disaster, this first one, really. So I put that one to one side, let it dry, and I tried again with exactly the same process. On this one, I was trying to be a little bit more conservative with the pigment, mostly because I didn't want too much bright colour on the page. And when it came to adding the water, this time I just added a small spray, just enough to activate the colour. And it created some small splashes on the page, which I quite liked actually, and I set it aside to dry. Once they were dry, the second sheet was far more balanced, and I'd considered that one much more of a success than the first one, which, you know, with that much water on it, you can really see where the pooling happened, where it dried, and yeah, I'll find another use for that sheet of paper. It won't go to waste. So next I tried reversing the process, and this time I lightly sprayed the page first. And then I introduced the pigment dust onto the damp surface. Now, it is quite difficult to say whether or not the activation is stronger using one method over the other. Inktense is naturally vibrant anyway, and the main difference is with the water first method, you can immediately see where the colour is landing and decide whether or not you need to put more colour in one area or another. So in this case, I might have been a little bit too restrained with the water at first. A small amount of Inktense dust does go a surprisingly long way, but it does require enough moisture to fully release the colour. So I did introduce a little bit more water at the end, just to encourage a little bit more blending to get the effect that I wanted. So the outcome of using Inktense pencils with sandpaper does remain somewhat unpredictable, but I quite like that personally. These kind of atmospheric and irregular backgrounds can often be the basis of a most interesting page. So once they were dry, I used one of the sheets as a base for developing a seascape composition. Now this is a composition that I've been working on for several months, and if you're a regular viewer you will have seen the progress of this. So unlike with the watercolour pencils, drawing over the Inktense surface was a breeze. In my previous watercolour pencil experiment, the pigment clogged up my pens as I drew. I ended up with bits of pigment on the nibs of the pens, so it was clogging up the pens and it wasn't great. This Inktense background, that didn't happen. The pens just glided across the page. And I was also able to erase the pencil guidelines without removing the background as well, so that's, another positive. When it came to adding the foreground colour, I applied the Inktense pencils directly to the page, and I layered them up quite heavily for a stronger saturation. When I added the water, as expected, the Inktense pencils didn't reblend at all. The colours were bright and strong and gave quite a vibrant effect. So my painting wasn't perfect. This wasn't about achieving perfection though, it was all about understanding how the materials responded, so I classed this as an experiment really, rather than trying to make a perfect picture. But one of the qualities that I appreciate most about the Inktense is just how intense it is once it's activated. Yeah, I love it. I just love how vibrant it is. So now I understand how the Inktense will not react and how easy it is to draw over it. I feel ready enough to attempt a more refined seascape on the remaining sheet. So do look out for that in the future. I'll put that up as a full video. So thank you for watching this little video today. I do hope you found this exploration useful. If you did, do consider liking this video. Your support is very much appreciated, and I hope to catch up with you again soon.